is red. And here they're all the same because of the good work that we've already been doing that you have helped to do in the state. So we're at 100 for all three of these. Of course, when we look beyond just graduation, 1.8 talks about graduation plus, those who have completed some of the accelerated outcomes, AAP, IB, ACE, dual enrollment, industry certification. And we can see, of course, an increase just about every year as we move forward. Our baseline is 61 there. And our red kind of data-driven target for 2024 would be 73%. Our aspirationals in yellow. And our green is we're reaching high, we're aiming high. So hopefully somewhere between those we land as we move forward. Post-secondary completion rate, so that's the rate of students completing a post-secondary degree or certification within 150% of program time. We've got FCS, Florida College System goal, and we've got a post-secondary goal there. And we're going to work hard to move forward. Our baseline here was 40% for the Florida College System, and the district post-secondary was almost 68%. So we're hoping to move forward aggressively with those goals. So when you think about those goals and the vision, all students, that includes our students with disabilities, and in Florida, that's about 14.4%, a historic 10-year high. We're moving up in the trend line for our percentage of students in the K-12 population with disabilities. It ends up being about a little over 400,000 students. And of those students, the most recent data indicates that, of course, the majority of them are identified as students with specific learning disabilities, SLD, second only to speech language impaired students who are at 21.4% of that subpopulation of that 14.4%. And of course, we have that other category, which is our low incidence. It's where I spent a lot of my life as a teacher in the low incidence population. I worked with students who were identified as dual sensory, vision impaired, and deaf, hard of hearing. And you'll see those percentages laid out here, as well as some other low incidence in the other category possibilities. This is about 10,000 students. So when we align our statutory mission, the vision of the commissioner, our updated strategic plan goals, of course, we have that extra layer that we're very familiar with. And for those of us who live and breathe, work with exceptional student education. And this emphasis comes to us also from federal law, but of course it lives in the belief that improving educational results for our students with disabilities is essential for moving forward, ensuring equality of opportunity, full participation, economic self-sufficiency, independent living for our students with disabilities. And this is the heart of the work that we do. Focused on students, remembering that there are students first, that that special education is a service and not a place, which I know we probably spend a lot of time reminding our peers and those that we work with about, that we know that acting early is key, and that we are accountable, which aligns very well with our values and priorities. We are held accountable for student outcomes, and that we are responsible for using that data to monitor the effectiveness. So what we know we're doing works because we know we're measuring it. We measure what matters. Of course, part of that, in alignment with that, is having those high expectations, and that we're coordinating those services with others. And this is what we do in the transition area all the time. We work with multiple agencies to coordinate that next step early so that students know what's coming next, and we can plan for it. And that those approaches and that integration is reflected in the services and the IEP, and whole school approaches that are research-based. one of the things that we know, of course, that maintains its importance in multiple measures is about the importance of inclusion. Of course, we always use regular education environment. That definition comes to us from the federal regulation, and that we remember and remind our peers constantly that removal of students from the reg ed environment only occurs when they have the data to demonstrate and place in those IEPs evidence of the fact that the nature and severity of the disability is such that you can't, that education in regular education classrooms can't be achieved satisfactorily, even with the use of supplementary aids and services. But it's so important that we actually reiterated that, and not all states do this in our state statute, that we talk about inclusion in our state statute and we define it, and we ask, you know, of course, we have BPIs and other requirements related to it in statute because inclusion is so important, the value within the state of Florida. And you can tell because our values are reflected in practice, and our practice is then kind of shows up in outcomes. So every year we've done a little bit better in making sure that students with disabilities have the opportunity, that separate is not equal, that they have that opportunity to participate with their peers in regular education environments to the fullest extent possible. And so our 2021 numbers are 77.6%. And this is through some selected, what does regular education placement look like? What do those percentages look like for individual disability categories across the years? And I think this tells that story when you think about the story of inclusion, that, which is, separate is not equal. They are starting to be, if we want communities that are inclusive, we have to start with classrooms that are inclusive. And this tells that story of the success that Florida has had in making sure that more and more of our students with disabilities are included in their school communities to the fullest extent possible, so that we can create those inclusive communities moving forward post-school. And that, so back to your teacher ed days. I know many of you who have probably spent a lot of time reading, your Jorgensen and Anne in school. But that theory of presuming competence, that least dangerous assumption, is something that we keep in our minds, in the forefront of our mind. That in the absence of conclusive data, we make those decisions educationally as part of those IEP teams that will have the least dangerous effect on students. And that's hard to do. I think it's juggling, limited resources, some very adult concerns, about can we meet the needs of the student in a regular education environment, in a fully inclusive environment, in standards instruction, with the needs of what the future will look like for the impacts for that individual student. One of the things that we've been working with in the state, and it's a priority kind of this year and moving forward, is to make sure that we have placed on alternate standards instructions those students who are appropriate for that instruction. And of course, ESSA, every student, reaffirmed that if a state chooses, because states don't have to have alternate assessments, but if they choose to have one, they choose to have alternate standards and use alternate assessments, it's only appropriate for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, and which requires us as members of an IEP team and as families to think carefully about which students need to be included in the alternate assessment, and that we're ensuring that it is only students that we have data on and that we can demonstrate are these students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. And when we think about that, of course, we think about it kind of like a triangle. All right, this student has a cognitive impairment or a cognitive disability. If so, is it a significant cognitive disability? And if so, is it among the most significant cognitive disability? Because to align our practice consistent with federal law, we have to make sure that it is only students with that the very top of the triangle with the most significant cognitive disabilities who are included. Of course, we know that means that automatically rules out students identified with a specific learning disability who, according to state and federal law, are may not have a learning problem that's a result of intellectual factors. So those students should never be participating in access point, alternate standards instruction, and assessment via the alternate assessment. And that if we have any data that indicates as an IEP team that we may need to reconsider placement, that we come together and look at it, talk about it together. And that we have the appropriate permissions documented for making this drastic step for removal of a student from standards instruction. Course, when we talk about other data related to transition, we talk a lot about our goal for graduation. Our federal uniform graduation rate. Oops, sorry, that went wonky for a little bit. So Florida's graduation, it's a cohort graduation rate. I know you guys probably live and breathe these numbers. We have calculation guidance that we use for some of these numbers from the feds, and we also have state-specific guidance. And even though you can tell we're one of the strongest states in this area, we've still got work to do. This kind of breaks that down for 1920 by race. When we talk about achievement gaps, you can see that there are some gaps in achievements here that do indicate we still have some work to do as a state and as individuals to ensure that our practice across the board with every student we touch is helping to reduce those gaps as we note them, and opportunities. So we can see the students with disabilities graduation gap over the past, well, this just gives you kind of a 5-year snapshot of those gaps. And that's the dark blue is students with disabilities, the gaps with students with disabilities, and then the green is the non-SWD. So we're making progress in reductions, but not completely closed that gap yet. Of course, we've got the trend, the long trend of exiters with a standard diploma, which we're making great progress in as a state. And we're doing some work in terms of, as a bureau, to monitor those. So for those districts that have difficulties in meeting those goals, we typically use multiple data sources to identify that struggling districts, and we do on-sites. And if we have a component that includes graduation, we add that to our visit. So we visited 7 districts back in 13-14, and all 7 increased their graduation rate as a result of those continued interactions, because it's not just the on-site, we continue to follow it up with them. Dropout rates continue to decline. We have that target in 1920 of 9%. We were almost there. If you round down, we did. And we think about gaps in dropout rates. For the past few years, we can take a look at those, disaggregate those numbers from all students to different racial categories, and get a temperature check on how well we're doing there. The good news is that we're doing good work in decreasing dropout for all students, including the subcategories. But of course, we have a few gaps, as you can tell in those orangey yellows. I guess it's more yellow bars. Of course, this is another area where we target for differentiated monitoring, and we have data that indicates that our differentiating monitoring, our ability to be present, offer TA to districts, makes a difference in helping them. So this is FET-PIP data. Talks about post-secondary outcomes. Talks about them in 3 main areas for performance. We talk about higher education. That's the red. The green is higher education or competitively employed, which is the green again. And then that, I guess, navy is a good word. Navy, it maybe look black to some of you, employed or with our continuing education. And those continue to, well, fluctuate a little bit, although we are definitely up from the 15, 16 in all 3 areas, but there are some small fluctuations in that number. Of course, this is 18-19 post-school outcomes. This is a gap measurement, so you have students with disabilities in Navy, and then that lime green is all students. And then this just pulls out that gap measurement for 18-19 for students with disabilities and all students. So before I talked a little bit about our differentiated monitoring system specific to IDEA, something that our Bureau is charged with, we've had some updates and integrations related to that. I think it's important probably to share those with you guys. So when we talk about how the Bureau provides supports, especially in areas so important like graduation and dropout, we talk about, our tier 1, we have our multi-tiered system of support for districts. We have that desktop monitoring for compliance. We ask districts to self-assess in areas. We review and approve those ESE policies and procedures. And of course, we have projects that we fund with our IDEA discretionary dollars that are managed by the Bureau and determined by the department, like Fiddler Centers, like Project 10. Like PBIS, like SEDNet. Those are all funded through our IDA discretionary dollars and managed by the state to provide supports to districts to improve in targeted areas. And those are all available to all districts. And then we have targeted monitoring for those who, through data, we determine our tier 2. And there's data, programmatic, and fiscal auditing. And then, of course, tier 3 would result in, would be our on-site intensive monitoring, ordered corrective actions. And the very last thing would be issued conditions or holdbacks on IDEA awards, which we haven't done a lot of in the past. I think this year was the first year that we had conditions on IDEA awards for a district. And all of this, of course, is based on a risk assessment, results of a risk assessment by or emerging issues when we do that forensic analysis of the data from a district based in these areas and based in certain areas that I'll talk about in the next few slides. So when I talk about what that risk assessment looks like for districts, I think it's important also because it can inform the self-assessment process that should be part of that continuing improvement model that all districts and systems are doing. We look at organizational data, staff turnover, district size, transitions in policy, new superintendents or newer ESE directors. We look at LEA determinations, which is informed by our state performance plan, annual performance review data. That's federal data that we have to report on every district. SF federal index scores, so schools, percentage of schools that are identified needing targeted support and intervention or comprehensive support and intervention, TSNI or CSNI for the SWD category. We also look at compliance and performance data. We review stakeholder communications, access of districts to those discretionary projects. We also work very closely with the Auditor General's Office and the Office of Inspector General to get results of fiscal or programmatic audit results that are external to us. And those all feed in to that risk assessment completed for districts. So one of the things I talked about as part of that risk assessment, and it's part of our yearly obligation for the receipt of IDEA funds, are all those data points that we are required to collect and submit in a variety of areas. There's 17 indicators, 16 of which are discrete data elements that are reported out for every district. You can see them there. They're comprised of both performance indicators and compliance indicators. There's a hyperlink up there if you ever want to look at the whole list, see what the feds have to say about it. Our particular framework that we have chosen that basing our interactions with districts in key areas is based on work done by the NCEO, the 6 key practices. And this is something that is actually starting to be utilized department-wide in other title areas. So you may see these 6 key practices emerging in work if you work in other areas as well as transition, like maybe you do some other title work for your school or district. You may see these emerging because they're starting to spread. It's good things have a habit of doing that. And our 6 key practices that make up our theory of action for how we kind of inform continuous improvement and support continuous improvement are use data well, focus your goals, select and implement shared instructional practices, implement deeply, monitor and provide feedback and support, inquire and learn. And this aligns well with updates to our strategic plan, with our values and mission. And it's something we're going to continue to use moving forward. It's an updated version of our theory of action here that talks about if FDOE leads and LEAs or districts do the following with the 6 key practices, then schools and can use them to implement that MTSS to students based on the need and resulting in continuous improvement that will help students engage, progress, and graduate college, career, and life ready. So that's our goal in using these 6 key practices. And I think you can drill that down. The website that was, I think, a couple of slides ago has even school level protocols and teacher level and parent level information that I always find really informative and helpful to share. But of course, none of us can do this work alone, right? It's a system, and systems require its members and components to work together, to be partners, to fully collaborate. Because we know students with disabilities are students first, that collaboration, integration with other agencies, with other partnerships, with our gen ed teachers, we've got to be a part of that system and fully integrated for us to truly make progress. And so, you know, this. So if we have community partners, if we're fully involved with Voc Rehab and community partners and other agencies in our projects and supports, you know, if we're all pulling in the same direction, of course, we can improve those post-school outcomes for students with disabilities. And we're all focused, of course, not on calling people out, but bringing them into the conversation of how we make things better for individual students and families. So I've threw out here in some data resources, because data is one of our 6 key practices. It's a key value in how we move forward. There's some really interesting resources here that I think may be useful to you. It's hyperlinked. And of course, we have evidence-based assistance provided by our lovely IDEA discretionary projects, funded and managed by the department, and available and encouraged for use for districts and educators and parents and families as well. So my bureau, which looks slightly different than it did last year, because we're now ESE instead of Exceptional Education and Student Services. We had that split. But I know both of us, Andrew, who leads the Bureau of Student Support Services, and myself, who leads the Bureau of Exceptional Student Education, we both look forward to continuing to partner with all stakeholders, because that, of course, collaboration is key. And we hope that all boats rise with the tide and that we're all moving in the same direction. Right, some important context there. And I'm here if you have any questions, always.
Thank you so much. Do you want to take a few questions, or should we? Your schedule is probably really tight, and we have more to cover to close up the conference. I leave that up to you. I just want to ask you one question because I'm so glad you shared about your daughter. What do you think the most important element of her transition on to college was for you as a family?
So I really lay a lot of her success at that robust integration of transition support. There was the Division of Blind Services, her teacher of the visually impaired began working together with her early. We're talking probably right at her move towards high school. They started assessments. She participated fully in those summer experiences where she got some real life experience with work and you know, what a resume looks like, and getting to have those. She had a really good counselor, vocational rehabilitative counselor, who said, hey, oh, you're interested. At one time I remember she wanted to be an astronomer. You're interested in an astronomy? Let's go talk to a professor about that and what that might look like. Or here, let's talk to somebody in the field. Let me see if I can hook you up with somebody in the field who actually has a visual impairment and is doing this work. And so those interactions early in her high school career and ongoing, I think helped her to see herself, where I fit in my future, you know, that I could do this, that there are people who are like me, who have the same challenges I have, who made it through and are successful and living and having dreams and aiming high for that. And so it made it, when it got difficult, because of course it will, you know, college is, it's hard, and getting your accommodations and having things accessible to you become only more difficult in that environment, and that self-determination is key. But if you know and believe and have a network to help you navigate that, I think it just makes all the difference. And
I love that. I love that. And that's a great takeaway for all of us in this field in terms of transition. The earlier we start in terms of that assessment piece, and the more we collaborate with all the entities that are involved in the transition process, that will have the most positive impact. I love that you shared that piece with us. Thank you so much for sharing your time. I know you're real busy. I think legislation is still in session too, right? So that's still going on.
That's very true. Session is still we're still very much hot into negotiations and bill analysis and feedback as things change rapidly. I think I had a handful of staff here. We all ate dinner here and continued to work throughout the evening, and it'll continue to be that way, I think, until the 30th, which is the last day of session. So we're available between other work if you guys want to send me an email and have questions, since we're here anyway.
We're going to be uploading Victoria's, the Bureau Chief's presentation onto EventMobi. Of course, it was recorded so that you will be able to access those hyperlinks, because I see some of those questions in there. But we really appreciate the Bureau Chief's time, because she is really busy with legislation still being in session. But you will have access to this information, including the recording. Is there anything else you want to share with this large 219 plus, it's probably more because there are more people in rooms together, audience of transition folks? And it's not only transition teachers, it's job coaches, employment specialists, it's agency personnel, it's you name it, anybody that touches or has anything to do with career development and transition, they're in your audience today. So we thank you for your time. If you want to say some final words, you can, and we'll move on.
Yeah. So before I duck out and head to the next big thing, I just want to thank you guys for the work that you do every day. The students and families in the state of Florida benefit from the time that you spend here together and the hard work and heart that you put into the work that you do for them. And being mission driven myself, I appreciate that. And so I want you to know that you have an ally here in the department who deeply appreciates the work you do and is able and willing to help. So have a great rest of the closing part of this conference, and thanks again for all that you do.
Thank you so much. So the next slide is the sponsor. We want to thank our Bureau Chief, Victoria Gatanis. The next slide is going to be our sponsor. And any questions you might have, we are going to take them out of the chat box and we'll put them in the EventMobi app if we need to get answers to those questions. But like I said, the PowerPoint that she just presented is going to be in the EventMobi, and so you'll have the hyperlinks to that information. So our next sponsor, I really want to thank again Family Network on Disabilities and Family Network on Disabilities Trust for their sponsorship of this year's conference. And this is my friend, the Director of Programs and Impact, Family Networks on Disability, Joe LaBelle. Are you sharing a PowerPoint or are you just going to talk? Are you on, Joe?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just going to say a few words. So again, I wanted to say how thankful we are that FND is able to be the conference partner this year, and how thankful we are that hundreds of staff members from every county in the state of Florida is represented here at this conference, learning, growing together. It is tremendous work that we're doing in this field. For those of you who missed my opening remarks at the beginning of the conference, FND is the statewide Parent Training Information Center funded by OSEP. We are also the statewide Family to Family Health Information Center funded by the U.S. Department of Health under HRSA. So what we do is we help families who navigate special education systems, mental health systems, and medical health systems. We work with districts across the state from Pensacola down to Florida Keys. So please go to our sponsorship page. Feel free to reach out to us. We are here to support you as district staff members, as community organizations, to help support families that you're working with. Thank you again to the board of DCDT for allowing us to be a part of this conference, and I look forward to seeing everyone next year in person.
Thank you so much, Joe. Everybody make sure you go on the FND website. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts, everything that FND did this year to sponsor our conference. The next slide should be more thank yous, right? It's the board. Oh, there's one slide missing. Did you go one, two more? One, huh? Well, it was a picture of the entire board. I wanted to thank them again because this is it. That's the members at large. I thought there was one more slide before that. There it is. There's the smiling faces. That's the executive board for Florida Division on Career Development and Transition. I do want to say a quick few words. We did have a membership meeting or membership drive, and I think Carly said we got about 5 more new members, and I want to congratulate and appreciate people signing up. We were at 79, then we got to 82, and if we did get 5 or 6 more new members from the membership meeting, we're hitting my goal of 100 before my presidency ends. The more members we have, the stronger our organization is. This is an opportunity for you to network, to get resources, and develop those great friendships and connections with these individuals here. I highly thank all of the members of the board, because without them, this conference would not be possible. I do want to thank our sponsors, which is the next slide. And those sponsors are, of course, the Family Network on Disabilities. The slides are moving slow for me. I'm not, there it goes. The Family Network on Disabilities, the Family Network on Disabilities Trust Services, the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. So go check out their website as well. The Able Trust for their support and everything they do with High School High Tech is amazing. The next slide. I don't know if it's delayed on my part. Technology. The Best Buddies program. The Florida Council of Administrators of Special Education, Florida CASE, does so much to support us, and we have a dual member, a member of our board, serves on their board as well. The Florida Department of Education, for their wonderful support, and the support we got from Wendy Meddy, the transition specialist for the state, as well as our bureau chief who shared that wonderful keynote. Project 10 does great work around the state, the Transition Education Network, and for their support in this year's conference. There should be one more thank you slide. And that is for Discoverability, A.L. Harper Foundation, Disability Rights Florida, and HDS Companies, eHousing Plus, HDS Foundation Housing and Development Software. So we want to thank all of our sponsors this year for sponsoring this. Without them, it costs a lot of money. Even this year, everybody's like, well, why is there a registration fee? It costs a lot of money to do the registration app, do the Event Mobi app, to store the recordings, to do the closed captioning. Everything costs money, and that's why we need both sponsors and registrations, plus anything that we make above that as an organization, we put towards next year's conference. We have to pay for keynotes and hotel spaces and such. So I've changed into my full Superman t-shirt because I hope I did the best I could in terms of this conference. So to wrap it up, I did want to post the award nominees' names again for our Patrick Mullihill Making a Difference Award and for our Deborah Husted Awards. And here are the winners of the Patrick Mullihill Making a Difference Award winners. That was Linda Andrews, Garrett Copeland, Christina Gilson, Jennifer Mackler, Rise Coffee and Company, and Nyes Cream. And for the Deborah Husted Dreams Can Come True Memorial Award, that was Kelly Griffin and Ruth Holland. So I want to once again just highlight this. Because we really didn't get to celebrate them in full force like we would do in person, the standing ovations and the applause. I want you to definitely check out the FLDCDT website and consider becoming a member. We need more members. I want to see that membership increase to 100, hopefully. So the village people will say, here we go, recruit, recruit. So we made history today. And like I said, I think I did the best job I could. And the little voice inside my head sometimes beats me up. I'm like, did I stutter? Did I stumble? Did I fumble? And all I can say is I did the best I could and I gave it my all. So hopefully you enjoyed the conference and had a lot of great takeaways. And since we made history, I'm going to ask Danny to do one thing is we're going to take down the PowerPoint for just a second. This is completely up to you. I would like for somebody to take screenshots. You can turn off your camera before that person takes screenshots because we may use these photos for our website and for our social media because this is an unusual event. This conference usually takes place face-to-face. We've never had it via virtual. So this was a once in a lifetime. We made history by doing it this way. So if you don't mind, we'll take pictures or screenshots. We have 202 on right now. Turn off your camera if you don't want to be seen. But if somebody wants to slide through as we take pictures and or somebody is sliding through and take screenshots. I know if Lisa Friedman Chavez is on, she's good at screenshots. She can get me the screenshots. I don't know how many screens there are of folks, but I do want to record this as a matter of history that we did this virtually. And I thoroughly hope you enjoyed it. We're going to bring up the PowerPoint once again because we have a commercial for the upcoming face-to-face. But while everybody wave, while we're getting some screenshots. And if you have your camera turned off, that's okay too, because some people don't like their photo taken, and we're going to use that as commercial for next year. So now we're going to bring the PowerPoint back up. I appreciate you letting me do that. Okay, I'm going to stall a little bit. Was this the next slide? Because Sarah just texted me. Hopefully she's back on because she has to go on in a second. Her internet just went out. So I'm just so glad it's over because you don't know how stressful it was putting on this conference. Without the board support, this would never have happened. But for me, it was a very stressful conference. So you look at the photo right there before and during the conference, the stress level I was under. And what happens with every conference, there's a long-standing tradition that I get to tag the next president, really, because the main part of the executive board too is planning next year's conference. So after the conference, there's zero stress and passing the torch. So you see me smiling and jumping up and down. So before I pass it on to Sarah, I want everybody in the chat box, though, to write one word that describes their experience in terms of this virtual opportunity, that you learn some of your takeaways, put it in the chat box. Like I said, love, gratitude, words have power, the power to stand, fearless independence, support, learn, engage, thrive, plan, help one another, believe, faith, strength, improvise. You attended breakout sessions. I did not have an opportunity to attend every breakout session. So put those one words in the chat box for us. I'm just curious what your takeaway was, not only from the keynotes, but from the individual breakout sessions you attended. Now there's going to be music before I turn it over to Sarah.
All right. Thank you, Freddie. On behalf of Florida DCDT Board, I want to thank everyone for your enthusiasm, for your engagement over the past several days as we hosted our first virtual transition conference. One of the big benefits of the virtual event is the ability to never miss a session. So Florida DCDT hopes that you have enjoyed the conference sessions you attended and you were able to visit and bookmark the vendor links that are available. As Freddie mentioned during our general session, we're going to have the recordings transcribed and posted so that your learning can continue after this event. And to extend your ongoing professional learning, you're going to have access to your EventMobi account for the next 6 months. This will give you time to review the sessions and continue networking with each other. Make sure you have completed all of the evaluations with the EventMobi app for the sessions you have attended and provide us with your valuable feedback. In the few short days we've been together, we were able to laugh, learn, be inspired, and maybe even cry a little. Year after year, Florida DCDT is excited to have the opportunity to collaborate with dedicated transition professionals from across the state. Chris Norton told us during our opening keynote that we must remember what is being done right instead of focusing on criticism, and we must be the Georgia to our students, remembering the importance of our words. Chris reminded us that what you focus on will get stronger. Your focus and your commitment to the students of Florida have impacted and improved the lives of so many students throughout the years, just like Delana from Titusville High School. Delana shared some of her transition concerns yesterday on her journey to move towards independence. Independence is a goal that we have for all of our students, and as Delana told us, teachers empower us with potential. We ask you to take this positive focus and message of fearless independence back with you as you work with your districts, your schools, and your students. The Florida DCDT Board is excited to announce that our annual Visions Transition Conference will resume as a face-to-face event next year from April 6th through the 8th of 2022. The DCDT Board is eager to tell you more about our location, which is the Sheraton Orlando Lake Buena Vista Resort. I believe we have Alan Ledowitz, who will be able to tell you a little bit more about the Sheraton Orlando Lake Buena Vista Resort. And Danny's going to play a short video for us about this location.
Hello and good morning. Very excited to have the opportunity to speak to everybody this morning about the amazing Sheraton Lake Buena Vista Resort. And I'll be available for questions after the video plays, but I'll start off at the outside of the hotel. So without further ado, we can play the video and then I'll be available for questions. So that was a quick overview of the hotel. Hopefully the section about COVID will not be necessary come next year when you guys are checking in, but just in case it is, we are taking all the necessary precautions to make sure that everyone's safe, and healthy. From social distancing, we set meeting rooms up with social distancing, and we also will have all the availability for virtual attendees as well, for anybody who is unable to attend in person. So we actually just had a meeting about that right before I came on with you to make sure that all those capabilities are top notch for our groups coming in. But with the hope that everything is, what the new normal is, we will have all our great food and beverage available, all our amenities will be open, our restaurants will be fully engaged. And for anyone who's been here in the past, we've done a lot of upgrades already at the property with new ownership and new management. So there's quite a few changes with landscaping, with painting, everything's been upgraded a lot in the last 3 to 4 months. So if you have been here before, some exciting new changes. If you haven't been here before, then we look forward to welcoming you for the first time. So,
Alan, just real quick, just one quick question is, how far are you from Disney Springs? People probably want to know that. You're like a stone's throw away, right?
Correct. We are less than a mile from Disney Springs. We do offer we do have transportation to Disney Springs and the parks as well.
Awesome. We look forward to seeing you in April 5th through the 8th.
Great. We look forward to it as well.
And Freddie, I want to add that the hotel, working on the hotel committee closely with Alan, they've agreed to extend the days before and after at the same rate. So if you want to make a little mini vacation in there, your family's close enough they can walk to Disney Springs. So hey, be a good time. April in Orlando is a great time to visit.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And we definitely look forward to having everybody here. Your organization is fantastic, and we want to help support it in any way that we can.
Great. Thank you so much. And we appreciate all of your safety considerations that you've put into place as you keep everyone safe in our visit. So our membership meeting, everyone, just as we're wrapping up, our membership meeting is going to be on Tuesday, June 1st at 3:30. Anyone who is a new or even an interested member, we'll take interesting members as well.
Sears meeting. I know that probably didn't.
Anyone who's new or interested in joining DCDT, you are welcome to attend the event. And since we're nearing the end of the school year, I was going to end by mentioning something about recharging your batteries. However, after consideration, I want you to consider your focus. Your caring, your dedication, and your commitment are your superpowers. Use them wisely. Have an amazing fourth quarter. Feel free to reach out to any of the Florida DCDT board members with any questions. Thank you all so much for attending, and have a great afternoon.
Woo! Sarah.
Thank you, Freddie. Great conference.